You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
Our episode today takes us to Voices in Alliance, Omaha. We were able to speak with them for the production of The Inheritance Part 1 in October of 2023, and now in their second season, they are able to produce The Inheritance Part 2. So today, we are speaking with Thom Davis, Dramaturg and Vice President of the board. Thom explains to us his first impressions of both parts of this play.
It's an amazing couple of plays that he wrote. It's just something that I only discovered after finding out that Randall was going to produce the plays. After I saw his production of Rotterdam in November of 2022, and he announced before that the Voices in Alliance Theater would be continuing and that the next production would be The Inheritance Part 1. And he said it's gotten rave reviews, and I honestly had not heard of it. And it was like, wow, I'm surprised I haven't heard of it. But once I found out what the play was, and I bought the script immediately and read through it in like a day, both parts in a day, because it was just captivating for me. And it truly is one of the most magical pieces of theater ever written for the American stage, and has won many awards, both in the United States and in Britain. So, yeah, we're very proud to be producing Matthew Lopez's work. And I think that the response that we've gotten from Omaha audiences has been even surprising to us, because we knew that it was a great play, but we didn't know that so many people would come to just love it. And so part 2, of course, is just picking up right where part 1 left off. And you get to find out what happens to all of your favorite characters from part 1.
This was such a perfect synopsis, but there's more. So now, here is more of what Thom had to say in our interview. Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And we are here with Thom Davis. He is the Vice President of the Board of Voices in Alliance and the Dramaturg for their upcoming production, The Inheritance Part 2. We are talking with him today via the internet. Thank you very much, Thom, for talking with us this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me to talk with you this afternoon.
Yes, thank you. Well, we're excited to hear about the part 2 of this.
Yes.
We were able to do the part 1 and talk with Voices in Alliance for part 1 of The Inheritance. Mm-hmm. And now we're able to talk to you about part 2, so we're excited to hear about it.
I am excited to tell you.
And just to say, it opens May 10th. There's 8 performances from the 10th to the 19th. I just want to start saying that. And it's going to be at the Bancroft Street Market. And we'll also put that in the outro.
For sure.
But yeah, so tell us a little bit about why you decided to do part 2 and what it's all about.
Well, the playwright, Matthew, wrote the play together, part 1 and part 2 together, and he really did intend for them to be performed at the same, well, not at the same time, obviously, but in the same kind of, you could even go one day and see both plays. Of course, that is kind of a lot for people. So what most theater companies do when they do produce Matthew Lopez's plays is they will produce part 1 first, and then they will do part 2. Okay. I know there are some places who can and do them in repertory, where you can see both in one day. For example, on a Sunday, you could go and see both shows. Oh, wow. We didn't do that. We don't have the capacity for that. But part 2 is definitely a continuation of part 1. However, you can see part 2 without having any knowledge of part 1 and still find the beauty and the enjoyment in the script itself.
Okay.
That's great.
Good to know. Okay.
So are all of the characters in part 1 also in part 2?
Yes, they are. And we actually have one additional character in part 2 who was not in part 1, but I'll leave that as a surprise for the audience.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Very
Sounds good.
Now, you are the vice president of the board there at Voices in Alliance, but you're also the dramaturg
yes.
For this particular production. just real quick, for those because dramaturg is still kind of a newish thing for a lot of people in theater, and for people who are not in theater, I find I mention that word and they look at me like I got three heads. They've never even heard this word, nor do they even know what it means. Give us a little brief explanation. What is a dramaturg? You
actually explained perfectly the reaction I get when I tell people what a dramaturg is actually dating back to the 19th century. In Germany, where the term was first used, and I'm not going to give you a bunch of boring theater history, although I could. But a dramaturg was originally created to work with a playwright on their new scripts. And the dramaturg would be responsible for all of the historical research or for working with the playwright and going through the script, making sure everything works together. Today, a dramaturg is actually someone who works with the director and with the actors to kind of provide all of the historical background from the script. A dramaturg can sometimes write notes that will go into a program, giving some type of insight into the production. But really, a dramaturg is also someone who is there for audience education. And we are doing that for our production by way of a talk back with the audience after our Sunday performance, which is Sunday, May 12th, which also happens to be Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. But we will have that talk back discussion after our production on May 12th. So I really encourage everyone who would like to discuss the play with the cast, with our panel of experts. We have a couple of people from the Nebraska AIDS Project joining us. So that's what a dramaturg does. They really just bring the world together, add the context, and also go through the script, making sure everything is clear for the actors and sometimes for the director.
Okay, very good.
That's great. I bet a director actually really welcomes that. Help.
Yeah, well, Randall Stevens and I have been working together ever since I told him I wanted to be his dramaturg for The Inheritance. And we have really done a lot to pull this play apart and put it back together and really dissect it and find all of the nuances and find all of the bits and pieces that need to be explained for the actors, for the audience. And so Randall Stevens is the reason I am here, and I just want to say thanks, Randall.
Oh,
hey, all
that's
right.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure with all of your experience and with your education in theater as well, it's just a welcome thing.
Well, it's mutual.
And speaking of education, you actually teach at UNO.
I do. I teach English to computer science majors, which is, I know, a strange crossroads, but the College of Information Science and Technology is my college, which is actually all about computer science and everything associated with that, but it's also about how interdisciplinary computers are in our world today. And part of that is the people who are graduating from the college need to be able to communicate and write. And so we have a very specific writing in the disciplines course that I teach. That is an English class, but it's also geared towards their major so that they are writing for their major.
That's great.
Interesting. It's very similar to, I have a good friend of mine, Daniel Reardon, who is up at Missouri S&T, and he is the English teacher for all of the engineer nerds up there at Missouri S&T. Used to be the old Rolla School of Mines. And
you guys could probably have a beer and
yes,
share some stories.
Yes, he's teaching Beowulf and all that stuff to all of the engineering folks up there. He says it's an interesting experience. He loves it, though. He loves it.
That's great. But you also have your bachelor's degree in theater.
I do, and I also have a master's degree in theater.
Master's, yes.
And master's degree in English from UNO's English department.
That's great.
You know, I've always loved language, and that has always been my number one thing that I wanted to work with. And so whether it's theater or whether it's English, I am still working in language. So it's, when I changed to English, it was really for my employment as a teacher, because teaching is my vocation. Language is my love, theater is my love, but teaching is my vocation.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay.
So this story it ended in part one, seemed like it was neatly packaged, and then you're able to pick up from that.
Right. Well, part two begins almost immediately after part one has ended. There are some scenes before the actual action starts again. I call them the liminal scenes, those scenes that you're not really sure exactly where they're taking place, and that's on purpose by the playwright. It's meant to set you into the mind that this is a universal kind of world that we're going to be introducing. So part one and part two are very similar in structure. However, part two does have some differences. There are many more scenes that are in this liminal space, meaning that they don't exist really in the current time. So again, not to give too much away, but we do have some flashbacks, and we do have some moments where you're not sure exactly where the characters are, which makes the play much more interesting, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, when you do this play, because you're at a different place, you're at Bancroft Street Market.
Yeah.
Do you don't have a lot of set necessarily that you use?
There really is no set. This is just, it's what we would call a black box, I guess. It's storefront theater, which is something that Omaha doesn't really have much of. So this is kind of our storefront revival.
That's cool, though.
And so it's really meant to be something that the audience has to know. And we have amazing sound design and lighting design. Even though we don't have many lighting instruments, it's just amazing what they have been able to produce with sound and with the lighting to place the characters where they are supposed to be in the script.
So it's at 2702 South 10th Street.
Right. Bancroft Street Market,
That's
which is an amazing space. It used to be a grocery store. And it was renovated, and the renovation is amazing, and it's all original wood in there. So really, when you go into it, you first encounter the smell of this old and amazing wood that really puts you into this world, and that is appropriate for part two because part of the action does take place in the woods. So
okay,
that's great.
Now speaking of your role in here as dramaturg, what was or was there one? Was there a specifically big challenge with the Inheritance Part 2, or one specific thing that you really had to dig into that you and the director really needed to know and get some context about?
Well, one of the characters spends a scene talking about history that I was not that familiar with. History of both the American Civil War and also history of 19th century England. Because this play is actually inspired by E.M. Forster's novel Howard's End. And so that is very much running through all of the scenes in the play. And so one of the scenes is about this character who was alive during that time. See, this is another liminal space, who really relays and relates what happened in 19th century England to what's going on in the current time in the world of the play. So that was one thing that I wouldn't say it was a challenge, but it did take some extra research digging on my part, which I also love to do. So that was fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So you said this takes place in the woods. So the Inheritance Part 1 was more about the farmhouse.
Yeah.
And it kind of ends in the farmhouse. So the farmhouse isn't really part of the story for the next one?
The farmhouse is definitely part of part 2, and that is where the woods also come into play, although there are different woods in part 2 which don't appear in part 1. And again, I'm not giving anything away.
Okay, all right.
That sounds good. Well, it sounds so interesting, and there's a lot of love triangles.
Oh, yes.
Probably still happening.
Like I say, yes.
Like the first one, lots of love triangles in that one as well, which is always fun.
Yeah. The play can be summed up. It's about love, lust, and liminality. That's how I like to say it, although most people wouldn't say it that way, but that to me is what it's about. It's about love and it's also about lust, and it's about how those two interact and conflict with each other. So there's definitely those same kind of themes running through part 2. We get to meet a new character that we met in part 1, but we learn much more about this character in part 2. And we learn a lot more about one of the main characters in part 1 that we didn't know. So that is also another really interesting dynamic that we go through in part 2. So, but yes, love triangles, lust, lots of that going on. So,
of course, you guys did part 1. Were you able to get some or all of the actors that you used for part 1 back for part 2?
We have all of the same cast for the 12 main actors, except for one who had other commitments. And so he was replaced, if you want to say, recast. Sure. Let's say that. Recast sounds much nicer than replace.
Yes, it
does. So, but everyone else is the same cast from part 1. And then again, this addition of another character who I am not telling you who that is.
That's fine.
That's really cool. Surprise.
That's really neat. I like that. And especially if people went to part 1 and enjoyed part 1, they can, when they come to see part 2, everything will be sort of that much more familiar. You'll have the same faces on the same characters for the most part.
Exactly.
And as an actor, I think that's really neat. I got to do that for the first time, play the same character, but in a different play.
Yeah.
Which there's not a lot of opportunities for that.
Right.
A lot of times you can do the same character. Oh, I did that play 3 times and I played that character 3. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's easy, but the same character in a different play, as an actor, I think that's really exciting. And,
I think that really would have to, for me, go to like Shakespeare. John Falstaff shows up in like 17 of his plays.
Yes.
For example. So yeah, there really is, that is unique that the characters will be in different plays, the same characters in different plays. And it's also, I think, good for the audience who fall in love with these characters in part 1. Will get to see them and revisit their lives again in part 2 and fall in love with them all over.
Yeah. That's super neat. I like that quite a bit.
And it's always so good to see a cast that has worked together and been cohesive, and then they get to do it again. That's
it makes the show just that much better.
Right.
It makes the show just that much better. Yeah, it's like the chemistry is just already there, waiting to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that this cast, they love each other. They are so tight and they're so excited to be together. And they're actually all already sad about the fact that it's going to end in a couple of weeks.
Right.
So everyone is very invested in the plays, and they're invested in each other. And that does create magical theater, because when you see love on stage, it really is something that is unique. And so a production like that, and I've seen a few of them where you're just like, the cast loves this play. The theater loves this play, and it just shows, and it's just a marvelous experience for everybody.
Yeah, it really translates. It really does. Yeah. It's nice to see, and that makes it that much more special. And certainly helps a lot and adds to it, especially since you're doing sort of the black box type of presentation. Strip it away, right?
Yeah,
you're not worried about sets and all that, and it's all about the story. It's all about the acting, and clearly your group is
the acting, the relationships, and
that's really nice to hear.
And speaking of this show ending, you do have a couple shows that we could briefly just discuss. Your plot points in our sexual development from August 15th to the 25th coming up at Flicks, and then Collective Rage, a play in 5 Bettys, November 7th through the 17th. So you've got 3 shows in your season.
And believe it or not, this is only our second season. It feels like we have been working.
Is this only the second?
Yeah. Our first season was Rotterdam. It was Significant Other, and then part 1. So the second season is part 2. It is. Yeah. So it's amazing.
You're right. It doesn't feel like just the second season. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, we're just really happy and amazingly grateful for how well the company and the plays have been received in our community. And it's, of course, something that was not guaranteed. You know, Omaha's first and only LGBTQ plus theater company is not something that, you know, most people would have said, oh, yeah, that'd be a great idea. But Randall Stevens, it was his love and imagination that created this theater. And so
Nice.
I am so amazingly grateful for him and for everybody who is working with us. And this is something that we hope will last for a long, long time.
Yeah, I hope
Be
so
nice.
too. I think
really
it's
nice.
exciting. It's exciting work, and I think it's necessary work, and it's a place for people to feel completely comfortable and accepting, and to hear the stories behind
Yes.
it as well.
Well, and
So-
you guys are putting on different productions as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're waiting for that one play, for the licensing to come up, and then half a dozen theaters jump on it. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Plot points in our sexual development and collective rage are playing Five Bettys. I'm not seeing being produced around Omaha, except for you guys, which is
Right.
great. That's exactly what you want. Doing
Exactly.
stuff that no one else is doing.
I would say,
And I would just imagine they're probably newer
Yeah.
plays as well, which is also bonus.
Yeah, that is one thing that we have focused on so far is we are producing not brand new necessarily, but newer contemporary productions. Yeah. So the plays that we are in consideration for our third season might, look back a little bit. So, but that's all going to be announced, sometime in December probably. So that's something for everybody to be excited about as well. But yeah, the two remaining shows of the season after part 2 is over, that will be something that will add to all of the unique voices that make up LGBTQ plus. And so we are very, very much interested in portraying all of those voices and giving all of those voices a voice, which is why it's called Voices in Alliance.
Yes.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
love it.
By the way, I do want to mention everyone who
Yes.
would like to buy a ticket, please visit our website, VIA Omaha. That's VIA Omaha.org. You can purchase tickets that way. It's so easy and so amazingly efficient.
Nice.
Wonderful.
VIAOmaha.org.
Yes. Well, I just want to thank you guys again for doing this. You do amazing work for the Omaha arts community. I know you do other things besides just theater. So we are so lucky that you are here and you are doing this.
please,
And I'm
thank
sure
you
you're
very
doing this mostly out of love because I don't think anyone's paying you to do it.
No, not yet.
Well, we're really excited for you, and I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
that the first season was such a success, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
second season is working out to be a season 3.
Yes,
So-
keep on rolling. Yes.
Yeah, we're eventually going to hopefully have more performances for our runs. Right now, we're very
Cool.
limited because, of course, we are a nonprofit theater. And so
Right,
everything that we do is mostly volunteer work. And, we do pay a little bit, but there's no way that we could compete with, a big theater company yet. But we will eventually. I am very confident.
That's okay.
Little steps, man. You got to get there a little
Yeah.
bit at a time, and you do what you can. And you got 3-show season, and they're all going to be good shows. And we're excited
Yeah.
to see how everything turns out. And hopefully, you guys can keep rolling into season 3.
Yeah, thank you
Keep
for
on
all
rolling.
of your hard work, and thank you for talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me talk about Voices in Alliance.
Always, thank you.
The Inheritance Part 2 opens May 10th and runs 8 performances until May 19th. There will be a talkback session after their Sunday performance on May 12th. This production is recommended for audiences over 18. For tickets, go to viaomaha.org. That's VIA Omaha.org. Performances will be held at the Bancroft Street Market at 2702 South 10th Street in Omaha.
Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. see you next time on the Platte River Bard.